Hold on to your shrimp forks, folks, because we're diving into a story that's got more twists and turns than a plate of drunken noodles. This isn't just any tale. It's a sizzling, spicy, and savory mix of legal drama and constitutional rights that will leave you craving for more. It's about guns, it's about rights, and it's got enough legal jargon to make your head spin faster than a shrimp in a hurricane. Picture this: a courtroom filled with sharp-suited lawyers, stacks of legal documents, and the weighty silence of justice hanging in the air. We're talking about the Second Amendment, that beloved piece of parchment that lets Americans exercise their right to bear arms. This amendment has been the subject of countless debates, discussions, and even heated arguments over the years. Now imagine a world where your right to buy a gun in one state could be totally sunk by the laws of another. It's like trying to cook a perfect shrimp scampi only to find out you're missing a key ingredient because it's banned in your state. Sounds fishy, right? Well, that's the murky water we're wading into today with the case of Antonyuk v. Nigrelli. This case is a legal labyrinth, filled with twists and turns that could redefine how we interpret the Second Amendment. This ain't your mama's legal battle, folks. It's a high-stakes showdown that could set a precedent for years to come. The courtroom is a battleground, and the lawyers are armed with arguments sharper than a chef's knife. This one's got teeth, or at least, it would if shrimp had teeth. The arguments are biting, the stakes are high, and the outcome could be as unpredictable as a stormy sea. Get ready to peel back the layers of this legal crustacean, because things are about to get shrimply. We're diving deep into the heart of this case, exploring every nook and cranny, and uncovering the hidden truths that lie beneath the surface. So, grab your legal bibs and get ready for a feast of information, because this is one story you won't want to miss. So what's the deal with Antonyuk v. Nigrelli? This case has been making waves across the country, stirring up debates and discussions in both legal and social circles. Let's break it down, shall we? At its core, this case is about the intersection of state laws and individual rights, a topic that has always been a hotbed of controversy. Picture this: a law-abiding citizen, let's call him Bob, wants to buy a gun. Bob is your everyday guy, just looking to exercise his Second Amendment rights. Bob lives in a state where buying that particular gun is as legal as a crawfish boil on a Saturday night. He's done his homework, filled out all the necessary paperwork, and is ready to make his purchase. But here's the catch: the gun shop Bob wants to buy from is just across the state line, in a place where that same gun is about as welcome as a vegan at a shrimp buffet. See the problem? Bob is now caught in a legal quagmire, where his rights in one state don't necessarily translate to another. That's the crux of Antonyuk v. Nigrelli. This case is more than just about Bob and his gun. It's about the broader implications for gun ownership and state sovereignty. It all boils down to a law called the Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act, or CCIA for short. This piece of legislation has the potential to change the landscape of gun laws in America. This bad boy, if it ever sees the light of day, would basically force states to recognize concealed carry permits from other states, kind of like a driver's license for your Glock. Imagine the implications. A permit issued in one state would be valid across the country, creating a uniform standard for concealed carry. But not everyone is on board with this idea. Critics argue that it undermines state rights and could lead to a patchwork of laws that are difficult to enforce. Supporters, on the other hand, believe it's a necessary step to protect individual freedoms. As the case unfolds, all eyes are on the courtroom. The outcome could set a precedent that will impact gun laws and individual rights for years to come. Whether you're a gun rights advocate or a proponent of stricter gun control, Antonyuk v. Nigrelli is a case that demands attention. So stay tuned, folks. This is one legal battle that's sure to be shell-shocking. Now, the Concealed Carry Interstate Act, or CCIA, has been kicking around Congress like an unwanted house guest, but it hasn't quite made it onto the law books yet. This piece of legislation has sparked a whirlwind of debate, with passionate arguments on both sides of the aisle. Why? Well, some folks think it's a recipe for disaster, arguing that it would gut states' rights faster than you can say shrimp scampi. They believe that the CCIA would undermine the authority of individual states to regulate firearms within their own borders, leading to a chaotic patchwork of laws that could endanger public safety. They say it would force states with strict gun laws to bow down to the whims of states with more, shall we say, relaxed regulations. Imagine a state with stringent background checks and training requirements having to accept permits from a state with minimal oversight. It's a legal and logistical nightmare, they argue. It's like asking a lobster to share its tank with a school of piranhas. The potential for conflict and confusion is immense, and opponents worry about the implications for law enforcement and community safety. But hold your horses, because there's another side to this story. Proponents of the CCIA have their own set of compelling arguments, and they believe that the benefits far outweigh the risks. Supporters of the CCIA argue that it's all about protecting the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. They contend that the right to bear arms should not be restricted by arbitrary state lines, and that responsible gun owners should be able to exercise their rights no matter where they are in the country. They say it's not fair that someone with a legal permit to carry a concealed weapon in one state can suddenly become a criminal just by crossing state lines. This inconsistency, they argue, creates confusion and unfairly penalizes those who are simply trying to follow the law. Proponents also point out that the CCIA would create a standardized system, making it easier for gun owners to understand and comply with the law. They believe that a uniform set of regulations would enhance public safety by ensuring that all permit holders meet the same basic criteria, regardless of where they live. The debate over the CCIA is far from over, and it raises important questions about the balance between state sovereignty and individual rights. As lawmakers continue to grapple with this contentious issue, one thing is clear: the conversation about gun control and states' rights is not going away anytime soon. Now back to our main course, Antonyuk v. Nigrelli. This case centers around New York's gun laws, which are about as restrictive as a lobster trap. New York, you see, has some pretty strict rules about who can buy, own, and carry firearms within its borders. They argue that these laws are necessary to keep their citizens safe and sound. But some folks, like our friend Mr. Antonyuk, beg to differ. They say that New York's laws are so strict that they essentially nullify the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. And that's where the Supreme Court comes swimming in, like a shark that smells chum in the water. They've agreed to hear the Antonyuk case, and the whole country is watching with bated breath. Section 5, Antonyuk's argument. Don't be Shellfish, Supreme Court. Antonyuk's argument is pretty straightforward. He's saying that New York's gun laws are so restrictive that they violate his Second Amendment rights. He's basically asking the Supreme Court to tell New York to loosen up a little, to be a bit less shellfish with its gun laws. He's not alone in this fight. Gun rights groups across the country are backing him up, arguing that a win for Antonyuk would be a win for gun owners everywhere. They're hoping the Supreme Court will deliver a decisive blow against what they see as overreaching gun control laws. Section 6. The Supreme Court wades in. Will they Shell-ebrate the Second Amendment? Now, the Supreme Court is notoriously tight-lipped, kind of like a clam guarding its pearl. They haven't tipped their hand yet about how they might rule on Antonyuk v. Nigrelli, but that hasn't stopped legal experts from speculating, dissecting every word of the case like it's a plate of shrimp scampi. Some folks think the court might use this case to send a strong message about the Second Amendment, potentially striking down New York's law and setting a precedent for other states. Others are more cautious, predicting a narrower ruling that focuses specifically on the Interstate Commerce Clause. Section 7, SCOTUS blog weighs in. A shrimp load of legal analysis. If you really want to dive into the legal weeds, and let's face it, who doesn't love a good legal deep dive, then you need to check out SCOTUS blog. It's like the Wikipedia of Supreme Court cases, but written by actual legal experts instead of your Uncle Bob after a few too many beers. SCOTUS blog has been following the Antonyuk case closely, providing in-depth analysis and commentary. They've got all the details, from the arguments being made to the potential implications of the court's decision. Section 8. What's at stake? The future of gun rights hangs in the balance. This isn't just some esoteric legal battle, folks. The outcome of Antonyuk v. Nigrelli could have major implications for gun rights across the country. If the Supreme Court sides with Antonyuk, it could open the floodgates for challenges to other state gun laws. Imagine a world where California's strict gun laws are suddenly on shaky ground, or where Chicago's handgun ban goes the way of the dodo bird. It's enough to make your head spin faster than a shrimp in a blender. Section 9. A win for Antonyuk. A sea change for gun owners. A victory for Antonyuk, could be a watershed moment for gun rights advocates. It could embolden them to challenge other gun control laws, potentially leading to a significant loosening of gun restrictions across the country. On the flip side, a loss for Antonyuk could have a chilling effect on gun rights activism. It could signal that the Supreme Court is not willing to go as far as some had hoped in protecting the Second Amendment. Section 10. The potential ripple effect. Coastal states brace for impact. The Antonyuk case has the potential to create a ripple effect across the country, particularly in coastal states with strict gun laws. States like California, New York, and Massachusetts could be forced to revisit their gun control regulations if the Supreme Court sides with Antonyuk. This could lead to a patchwork of gun laws across the country, creating confusion and potentially making it more difficult to enforce gun control measures. It's a complex issue with no easy answers, and the Supreme Court's decision in Antonyuk v. Nigrelli is sure to have far-reaching consequences. Section 11, the final verdict. Stay tuned for the Shrimp-tacular conclusion. So, there you have it, folks. The Antonyuk v. Nigrelli case is a real legal shrimp cocktail, full of twists, turns, and enough legal jargon to make your head spin. It's a case that could have major implications for gun rights across the country, and the whole world is watching to see how the Supreme Court will rule. Will they side with Antonyuk and deliver a major victory for gun rights advocates, or will they uphold New York's law, potentially dealing a blow to the Second Amendment? Only time will tell. In the meantime, stay tuned, my friends. This shrimp show is far from over.